Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that's not afraid to use our initiative. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings, or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Woo!
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and I carry him with me in my heart like an eternal flame. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
I am an excellent driver.
And each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. He wanted to be called William Shakespeare, but it was already taken. It's John Paula, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
Hi, hello. How are you? Good to be back.
Good. It's great to have you on the show, man. How you been?
Likewise. I'm good. I'm good. The big child is. The little one is learning to talk, and the big one's learning to talk back. So it's been a fun month. We've mostly moved into our new house here. I've repainted my office since the last time you saw me, but haven't quite had a chance to decorate. So by December's episode, when I come back in a month, maybe some
Christmassy stuff. Maybe put Die Hard on the wall for a Christmas movie or something.
Yeah, I like that.
It is funny you mentioned that. It is almost like you can add, like, as children grow, like they learn to talk, then they learn to talk back, then they learn to talk back and forth, like actually have conversations. Yeah. Like, how far can you take that down the road? But yeah, that's fun. The talk back stage of life is always a good one. Everybody says it's the terrible twos. It's really the threes. It's really the threes where it really kind of kicks in and those power dynamics start
to correct.
to start to figure that stuff out. Enough about parenting. Let's talk about pop culture. We've got a lot of fun stuff to get to. We've got Red Notice, a new movie on Netflix that we're going to review. Finch, a new movie on Apple TV Plus that we're going to take a look at. Our best ever challenge will be best ever AI movies, and of course we'll do some buried treasure at the end to kind of send us out. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Red Notice. An Interpol-issued Red Notice is a global alert to hunt and capture the world's most wanted. But when a daring heist brings together the FBI's top profiler and two rival criminals, there's no telling what will happen. As mentioned, Red Notice dropped on Netflix this week. Been out technically in theaters a week or so. They're kind of doing this thing with all of their movies where
they want to qualify for rewards, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm not sure they needed that with this one. I'm not sure what
this one's not getting any awards.
But hey, you do you. Think big, Netflix. Think big. But it is kind of their practice now, and it's confused me a couple times this year. As behind the scenes, people can attest to. I have said we're talking about a movie on the show, and then none of us have access to see that movie because Netflix, put it out in like 3 or 4 theaters or whatever.
Yeah. It was theatrical, but not wide theatrical.
Right.
It was available in one or two cities, 1 or 2 theaters.
It's messed me up a couple times, but I got it right this time. It did drop on Netflix this week. So let's talk about Red Notice. Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, Dwayne Johnson are the 3 primaries that are bringing this to us. So what did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? John, you kick us off.
I thought it was just okay.
Just okay it is. Andrew?
Let's go with low side of liked it. I could be persuaded to say just I like the movie.
Yeah. I could be persuaded to say that this is a terrible movie. I could also be persuaded to say that I liked it.
I need to write this down. Refresh my memory. Is just okay above or below liking it?
No, below, definitely below. Just okay is in kind of it's a catch-all for a lot of things, right? Like just okay is maybe there's a lot of stuff you liked about it, but also a lot of stuff you didn't like about it. So you kind of land in just okay.
I think I'm with Andrew then. I think I'm low side. I liked it. I think there was more here that I enjoyed.
It sounds like we're all in the exact same place. I'm going to consider myself a little lower than you guys because I do think this movie has some real problems. But
big time.
But I had so much fun. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like a certain movie, and specifically movies with Ryan Reynolds in them, do this thing to me where it's just like I just want to hang out with that guy for a couple hours. I'm having so much fun, and then my critical brain kicks in, and it's like, yeah, but this is this thing is terrible. This thing is terrible. There's nothing new here. So much cliche, so much convenience, like all that stuff.
The word convenience is a great way to describe so many of my issues with this story.
Yeah, convenient notice, maybe we call it. But yeah, so I'm going to land with you guys. Low side of liked it because I think that's the most honest place for me to land because I had a good time. And that's something, right? That's saying something. And I would recommend it, like, especially to people who aren't in like my film circles, who are like, taking stuff apart and thinking about things, uber critically, who are just, hey, what's something we can throw on Netflix and enjoy, as a family or enjoy tonight together. You'll have a good time. You'll have a good time. So yeah, I'm going to land in low side. I liked it as well. Andrew, why don't you kick us off with some of your specific thoughts?
So I think the thing that everybody is going to agree about this movie is just chemistry, mainly between Dwayne and Ryan. It's just that funny banter, that back and forth. It made for a really fun buddy enemy. I don't know what a frenemy dynamic. And I actually really thought Gal Gadot's character, as this antagonistic, like a character that they're racing against, was a lot of fun. She didn't have really that much character development. There was like one or two scenes where I'm like, oh, okay, maybe they're going to go somewhere with this character, but they kind of dip their toes in fleshing this character out, but really not too much. But really, it's going to be that you think that Ryan and Dwayne Johnson are just so fun together. That's going to be the big pro for this movie.
I might push back on that just a little bit. I didn't sense that as much. I mean, they were fun together, but I guess my thought is like, name a movie where Ryan Reynolds has teamed up with somebody and not had good chemistry, like not been fun with them. Like, I think he just has a way.
Just as he does it every time doesn't mean it's not great every time.
No, you're right. You're not right. But I did feel like there was at points, both between Ryan and Dwayne and also between Ryan and Gal and Dwayne and Gal, I do feel like there were points at time where I was like, I'm not sure this is working completely.
Interesting.
But I was always having fun. I was just like, I'm not sure I'm buying this relationship that they're talking about right now or the way that they're interacting. And it all felt very on the surface, which is okay, again, in a movie like this. But that's a very slight pushback. But I get what you're saying. But again, I would probably put that in the bucket of the Ryan Reynolds-ness of it all, as opposed to like a certain specific chemistry that any of them had. But yeah,
okay.
I understand what you're saying.
No, fair enough. John?
I'm inclined to agree with you, Aaron. I felt like this.
Well,
Red Notice suffered. It suffered, I think, the most. If besides the word convenient, I think the word pastiche fits really well. This was just an amalgamation of imitation. Like everything in this movie we've seen before in better pictures. Like a lot of it felt like the Uncharted video game series. Other parts of it felt like the Thomas Crown Affair or Fast and Furious for a lot of it. And it's easy because all three of these people were in the Fast and Furious franchise, including Ryan Reynolds. I don't think a lot of people remember. And
he's got that cameo.
There's so much of this movie that's like, yeah, this is fun. This is great. I'm having a good time. But I also have seen this movie in a bunch of other movies. Mm-hmm. And none of it really, I think, stood out for me in any way that was unique or original or exceptional. Ryan seems to be doing Ryan. And that's always entertaining, but it's also beginning to be a little bit tiresome. Like, I get it. You're like witty and sarcastic.
I'm not tired of it.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near tired of it.
Maybe not, but I definitely laugh at all of his humor, but like, he seems like he's in another, no one else is joking around with him. And he's just like doing his stand-up routine in the middle of these action sequences. And it's like, he seems like he's in another movie. Dwayne is doing this serious action film and Ryan's doing a really sarcastic comedy. And I don't know that they ever really kind of connected on the same page tonally. I think, their relationship makes sense, I guess. There's some elements that happen in the third act that I think were telegraphed based on their chemistry earlier. And I don't want to say much more to give anything away, but some of the problems I had sort of resolved themselves by the end of the picture, but that doesn't make them better.
Agree, and I will say this: we're not going to do a SIF spoil on this. There are
Yeah.
some big things that we could talk about, but I don't. I think we can talk around them just fine.
And I think it's
Um,
also not a huge surprise that
sure,
this is
that
the
there's a
type of
twist,
movie
right?
this
Yeah,
is the type of movie that has some twists and reveals.
You,
And to be fair, and like I don't think any of them were particularly effective or surprising. It was
see,
like, yeah,
that's so. I'll push back on you with that. That is actually in the positive column.
okay,
Probably one of my favorite things is that the story turns that this movie decides to make at the end. I actually thought made the movie better. I thought they were effective in spelling out some things
oh,
that
I
had been.
agree they were effective. I just also saw them coming.
Oh, okay, sure,
And I
sure.
think it's
I actually
because
didn't
some of the
this time,
script,
which is
I
fine.
think some of
But
the script work early kind of telegraphed certain things. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would this person know this or do this unless they were this person?
well, and
And
and for me, I'm watching the beginning, just going, "Oh, this movie doesn't care if it makes sense or not. It's just
yeah,
having
Yeah.
a good time." So I didn't even
I
think
was,
deeper about
I
it.
made the mistake of trying to make logical sense of Red Notice. And so much of this, especially their escape from a Russian prison, all of it just exists on complete happenstance and exceptional luck. They're just
Mhm.
like, we're just going to climb out of this wall and hope there's an exit. I have no way of knowing what's on the other side of this wall, but I'm just going to hope there's an escape route.
Yeah.
And oh, good, there is. That's great. And it's exactly big enough and supportive enough so that we can do it. But how would you have known that?
No,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. That's Ryan Reynolds' character. He's, if to pull from another one of his franchises, he's the domino, you know? Luck
Mhm.
is his power. Everything works out for him.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to make a really weird comparison here, but please bear with me. Whenever
Love
we're
it.
talking
I
about
love
the
weird comparisons. It's one of my
whenever
favorite
we're talking
things.
about the the constant twists in this movie, it reminded me a lot of Wild Things, the Denise Richards, Kevin Bacon, and
For sure.
and it got to the point in this movie where, yeah, I knew twists were coming. I may not have had them all figured out, but mentally I was prepared for the next twist where nothing really felt surprising, because I'm like, okay, so what's gonna be the next crazy thing around the corner? Oh, okay, so that's what that person really meant by when they said that. Oh, okay, so that person was really this person. So it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, yeah, my mentally, I'm not as shocked as I would be had you not thrown 1,000 twists in front of this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I may end up being the one who says the most nice things about it, because the other thing in the positive category for me, it's not just Ryan Reynolds that keeps me having fun. It's also some of the set pieces are really fun. Some of the ways they do reveals are really fun.
I
This
like
is
the camera work. There was some really,
Yes.
really, especially the opening establishing shot is high above Rome, and then it swoops down in between the buildings and behind the car, and then spins around as Dwayne gets out of a sports car. And that had to have been a blend of at least 3 or 4 different camera shots. And they do that a few times in the movie, where they do these impossible continuous takes that no single camera could have done.
Yeah,
I think the action works. I think there was some really cool and well photographed set pieces. They did feel like this looks like it was taken from Call of Duty 2. This looks like it was taken from an Uncharted game. This looks like it was taken from the Da Vinci Code. But I think if you had never seen any other movies, Red Notice is very entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole Indiana Jones section, and it's just like,
Literally.
it's like, yeah. I know, and the characters are aware of it and making jokes about it too, which
I want to hit on that.
They call that in the biz. I've heard they call that
Lampshade.
hanging a lantern is what they call that, and basically it's like, if you have a flaw that you know of, if you hang a lantern on it and bring attention to it, it means the audience will forgive you for it a lot more, because they know you're in on
That has always been Tyrese's entire responsibility in the Fast franchise. Is just call like, hey, we're going to space, and I know it's insane. Okay, the audience is, at least as long as you also know it's insane, we're on board. And a lot of Ryan Reynolds in this movie is hanging the lantern, hanging the lampshade, saying like, yeah, this is crazy. We should not have survived this, but here we are.
Yeah, totally.
And you kind of you're kind of allowed to get away with that if you're aware of how obscene some of the luck and the conveniences are in the picture.
Yeah. Andrew, what were you about to kind of say something on those lines?
Well, yeah, you hit on a bunch of what I was going to say about the hanging the lantern. It's stuff that I have always appreciated in movies. Like there's a bit with a car, and they're like, how do they get the car in here? Do they disassemble it and then put it back together piece by piece, carrying it down the stairs? It's stuff like that, or I guess they're paying the utilities and stuff like that. Things that we've said mentally, and I know you have written about, Aaron, for a certain
In my
YouTube
other
channel.
job? Yes. Yeah, right,
it's like he's doing the job for you. So
yeah.
yeah, that type of humor always gets me. I'm a sucker for that. So
Yeah.
There was a joke in here about Jurassic Park that I thought.
Yeah.
There was a joke in here about Jurassic Park that I thought was really effective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there's I love characters that reference movies in a way that doesn't feel like a forced metaphor for a situation.
Mhm.
Like Ryan humming the Raiders theme as they go down into a dark Nazi bunker is like that's something someone would do with just a passing understanding of cinema. You don't have to make a big thing about Indiana. Just a quick little nod, like, yeah, that's how people react in the real world to situations like this. They would make that reference and call back. So I liked a lot of those little references and nods. But I think it was the bigger picture stuff and the narrative choices that were just especially the mid-act sequence where they're at a fancy Eyes Wide Shut type party. There was just a lot of like really, really big leaps in logic. Like we need to do this, and this perfectly with no one noticing. And the only reason I know that is because I'm omnipotent. And it's if like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day could not have executed that heist plan better with 1,000 attempts and 1,000 tries. And they get it on their first go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, since we've been saying some nice things, I do think it's important to say that I can't overstate how cliche, convenient, and pastiche, great word, this film is. That is, if this movie gets torn apart by a movie critic, I completely understand. Yeah. Totally get it. Totally 100% understand your rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. You're giving it a D for your grade. Like, I get it. I can't disagree with you. It really is that, especially for there is also an attitude that comes with movie criticism sometimes that I can fall into. I think many of us can, where it's like, please, just something new. Can somebody do something new? And what's interesting is this is new IP. Like, this isn't, except it's not, because it's every single other IP, just kind of in a blender. And so I totally get that. And I think that can't be overstated that I've been called to task for saying, like, I like this terrible movie, because in some ways that is saying that there's an objective good and terrible thing. If you live in that world where you can say a movie is objectively good or objectively bad, you're going to say this is an objectively terrible movie. I get that. But because I'm enjoying myself and liking it, I think it's fair to say that it's a good movie. For me, this is a good movie. And so I do want to be more careful about saying I like this terrible movie. I like this good movie for me. But I am aware of why others would find it.
It certainly doesn't hurt that our lead characters are all like stunningly attractive, charismatic, well-known A-list celebrities. And I do feel like Netflix was definitely commissioned this and made this by committee. It's like, okay, we need a movie that's exciting. Okay, we need 3 action sequences. We need a lot of jokes. And we need attractive stars everyone knows. And they just like check, run down the list.
It's paint by numbers for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And they put everyone likes Ryan Reynolds, put Ryan Reynolds in. Well, we need someone who's big and strong and likes, doing action scenes in the jungle. Well, just get Dwayne Johnson. Okay. And it's like, I feel like this movie was just from the jump written by like an algorithm that is like specifically designed to appeal to people, middle American Netflix users. And it works in that respect. Hey. But yeah, to your point, Aaron, there's not a single thing here that was like unique or different. And I do love to find movies that at least just show me one thing I haven't seen before. Yeah. And I don't think we got that here, which is, again, it doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means it's not like a great movie.
Right. Yeah. Any last things to say about it? Any final thoughts?
No post-credit scene.
That is
They
true.
they kind of do a very soft setup for a sequel. Would
Yeah.
you
Sure.
guys would
There's a
you
little
be
bit of sequel
interested to see
baiting.
one?
Yes,
did-
because I'd be interested
see
to
it.
see anything Ryan Reynolds is in. Like I just,
Yeah.
like I said, I just love hanging out with that guy. Since Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, like I've just loved hanging out with him. So yeah, absolutely, I would love to see a sequel. There you go. That is Red
Agreed.
Notice. It is on Netflix. If you want to check it out. All right, let's move into our second review. Let's talk a little bit about Finch. On a post-apocalyptic Earth, a robot built to protect the life of his dying creator's beloved dog learns about life, love, friendship, and what it means to be human. This is on Apple TV Plus, and this is basically Castaway, but with a sentient Wilson. Is kind of how I've thought about it in many ways, because you've got Tom Hanks here, pretty much doing a one-hander in many ways.
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, you get to start.
I liked it. Solid, straight down the middle, liked it.
John?
Low side, I loved it.
Ooh, very nice. I'm more with Andrew on this, maybe even a little less. I think I'm low side of liked it. But I did, again, like this one. It does strike me as yet another good to great Tom Hanks movie that's just going to fly completely under the radar. We talked about this in our members only pre-show, if you want to listen to that, about the last decade of Hanks's career and kind of what defines it. This movie fits perfectly in his last decade, in my opinion. Let's talk about some specifics.
An above average performance in perhaps a soon to be forgotten under the radar type of experience.
Yeah. John, you seem to love it the most. So why don't you go for it, man?
Yeah. I really dug this one. I think it combined a lot of things I like about high concept dystopian sci-fi with that sort of really plucky, happy-go-lucky AI sentient sidekick a la Short Circuit. So we kind of took elements of The Martian and Short Circuit and then threw in like The Last of Us and Castaway, stuck them all into a blender. And you kind of get this interesting film that's a bit of like a coming of age story about a robot and like his learning about the world through Tom Hanks's tutelage. And there's some stuff in here I really, really enjoyed. I thought the world building was excellent. Tom gives a great performance. I thought the robot was really funny and endearing, and I wanted to see more of him. And I thought it was just an effective story that sort of knew what it wanted to be and stayed within its wheelhouse and never really tried to go bigger into what it couldn't tackle. I thought maybe it would open up in the third act and we'd see more people or more threats, but it's only ever sort of hinted at. And we'd kind of just stay with this robot, with his creator, and how they explore what's left of planet Earth. And I really enjoyed that for sure.
I got to hit on what you just said because I don't mean to throw negative in already, but it's my only negative with the movie, but it's fairly big. I think this movie is screaming to be bigger and say more than it actually does. I think that this movie feels that it needs to be more intimate and more, confined, but honestly, everything else in this world is screaming to be known about. And I'm fine with, every now and then we get a movie that's really, just about a single person or a single group of people. But I don't know, there was something about this one where there was something about it that just made me go, yeah, but I need more. I want to know more. If not about this group, then about what's going on. They kind of explain what's happened and everything, but I felt like,
not really.
But not really.
I appreciate that. I think that it leaves you wanting more. I felt in a good way. I was satisfied with what we got, and I would have liked to have seen a lot more world building and exploration of other characters and what really went down and how long it's been. But I also appreciate that they just sort of hint at it, and you can kind of fill in the blanks with the rest of your mind. And one of the scariest moments in the movie is from a person we never see. We just sort of get we don't even actually know if they're a real threat. We just sort of know that our characters are afraid, and we sort of are by proxy afraid for them, even though,
Mhm.
yeah, are they running from something? But is that something even bad? Like, we don't even know.
I
And I kinda like
I I tend to lean more with John on this. I think it's a feature, not a bug. I think the
Yeah.
movie definitely sees it that way. The movie is very intentional about that. The
Yeah,
scene
yeah,
that
yeah.
you just mentioned, John, and some others indicate that is definitely what they're trying to do. But I also think it's kind of a both things can be true situation. You know, what both of you are saying is absolutely true. There is a world here that would be more fun to explore, and also it's, in my opinion, okay that the movie decides not to explore it, because I think that allows the movie to focus on the empathy of the situation in a way that is really um, human. You know, there's a real humanness to this that you kind of lose if you start to bring in other characters, a little bigger scope, those kind of things. It feels very much in some ways it's kind of similar to how like a oneer or a one shot will put you more in the movie because it feels like something you could experience, right? You know, we don't
Yeah.
experience cuts except every night when we sleep. You know, like in our edits in our day-to-day life. But we do, you know, in a oneer, we're able to kind of live through it. It's the same kind of here. If we were to jump in this, you know, RV with, you know, Tom Hanks, a robot, and a dog, this is how we would experience it. You know what I mean? Like this is,
Yeah, and I think in some respects that's claustrophobic narratively, that we
mhm.
never see anything outside of his
Right. That makes
insular
sense. Yeah.
perspective. We only
Yeah.
ever know what he knows, and we get just
And we
fleeting.
don't even know everything he knows. Like, you know,
Yeah,
because that's not the stuff he needs to communicate.
yeah,
He is not in a place right now where he needs to tell this robot everything that happened. He's in a place where, you know, he has other priorities for this AI that he has built. So yeah, I think both things are true. I think you're both right. I lean a little bit more with John in enjoying what the movie decided to do. But yeah, I think they're both true.
Real quick, I want to talk about just how incredible the CGI in this movie is.
oh,
Like
it's flawless.
the
It really is.
robot CG in this movie is it's shockingly good. Like
It might
I
as well
think
be
it
real.
might be the best. It might be the best like animatronic CGI I've ever seen. I can't really think of anything that is like on this level. It's
And I'm not even. There was
superb.
plenty of names in the credits, but I'm not certain if this was puppeteering with men in green suits behind him, or if it was all computer animated, or if some of it was practical functioning,
Yeah,
robotics.
I don't know.
I think a lot of the close-ups were probably just a practical,
Yeah.
I think it
movable.
had to be. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's not, I mean, that would even more emphasize your point. But yeah,
But there's a lot of full body shots of the robot walking around, and it's like, well, that
Yeah.
we don't quite have that. Boston Dynamics is really close to that, but
Yeah.
I don't know that we quite have this level of sophistication yet. So there's a lot of visual effects artists in the credits of this movie, and they deserve all the credit for
Yeah.
what was based. I never thought about it, and I think sometimes I'll look for, like, I wonder how they did this. I was just so engrossed and so captivated by this plucky little character that I didn't really care how they did it.
Yeah.
I love the message in this movie, the metaphor. That's probably my biggest pro besides the CGI is the fact that it's, a metaphor for, parents leaving their children and trying to pass on knowledge with the limited time they have, and to try, like, what the dog could be a metaphor for. The dog could be a metaphor for the planet. The dog could be a metaphor for what's important in life. And, like, what I love about the movie is that every single time Tom Hanks Jeff is the name of the robot. Every single time that Finch tries to teach Jeff something, Jeff does does it exactly as he said, but there's so many times where it's like, do what I mean, not what I say, kind of things. Like there's exceptions to rules and stuff like that, and it's one of those things. Like I obviously I'm not a parent, but I'm sure Aaron, you could probably address this better than any I could. But like, Did you ever feel like whenever your kids went off to like to college or anything, like, did I teach them everything they needed to know? Did I prepare them the best I could?
Oh,
You know?
of course. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. I did want to talk about that a little bit more because it is another one of my in the pro column for me is the parental chemistry between Hanks and Jeff, or Finch and Jeff, I should say. It reminded me a lot, almost not of a parental relationship, but more of a grandparental relationship because there's a real
brevity to their relationship.
brevity and gruffness and kid, I'm just going to tell you what you need. Like it reminded me of Up in some ways. Like it reminded me of that, I don't have a lot of patience here because, I need you to get this now, kind of thing, which can be a parental thing too. But I just mean, there's something that's really interesting there that reminded me a little bit of Up, but I did enjoy it quite a bit in that way. Absolutely. That was one of my favorite things.
I will say on your quick correction there, Hanks v. Finch, it's really curious. This movie is not called Jeff. I just want to I feel like that was a mistake. The movie should be named after the robot.
The name is Jeff.
And I think that it's not a very compelling title. I don't know that Finch is either. Maybe it should be called Jeff and Finch, but
call it Goodyear.
I kept going into this movie thinking Finch was the robot, and I'm like, oh, it's the guy's name. What? What if Short Circuit was named after Michael McKean's character? Like that doesn't make any sense. No.
What about Fincher and Jeff Hooch? Something like that.
Something like that.
Turner and Hooch. I did want to say I looked up the CG robot stuff, and in just kind of looking through one article that I found, Caleb Landry Jones, who does the voice of the robot, actually acted the robot as well. So this is mocap into CG stuff for the most part.
Stellar.
That doesn't guarantee that there aren't practical effects, that they don't have a practical.
I have to assume the close-ups and anything from the waist
I
up
would
was just
think so. I would
stuff.
think so. But as far as the performance goes, it was definitely mocap to CG, and it is astounding. And props to Caleb Landry Jones as well for being part of the magic that we enjoy about that robot. So,
and I loved Andrew. You gave a quick glimpse of that impression at the top of the show, but his manner of speaking is this very childlike, robotic reverberation. Yeah, he sounds a bit like Johnny Five, and there's like this childlike, or Wally. And I love that. I think I am a good driver. It's just there's something about robot speak that just sort of tickles me in a way that this movie definitely scratched. And I appreciate it. He's like a character in a robot that I think you will find no trouble rooting for and wanting to just see more of. I thought he was fantastic. If they made a sequel to this and it's just the robot, I'd be like, yes.
And Goodyear.
Yeah,
listen, I got to tell you, Goodyear is great. That's the dog's name, by the way, if you haven't seen the movie.
Darn you. Why'd you do this to me?
There is Tom Hanks is just good with dogs, man. Like he has this way that you just feel like he and Goodyear are buddies, like they're pals. Like he has this scene where he's just like, I'm just good for scratches or whatever that happens early on. It's just so good. It's so good. The chemistry between him and Goodyear is great as well. And I've
always heard that dogs are good, like asshole detectors, and I feel like Tom Hanks clearly isn't. So all dogs just get along with him because Tom Hanks is one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. So it makes sense.
I will step down to say in all genuine sincerity and seriousness, Andrew, I know you're going through a lost dog situation right now.
I did not know that
is really, and I know that I'm sure this movie, kind of played into a lot of your emotions. So.
That is rough. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. Roland looks almost exactly like Goodyear too.
Yeah,
and I say things like that too. I'm like, whenever I come home and I'm like, Roland, I'm just good for scratches, aren't I? And I say things like that, but I still have a lot of hope I'll find them. So
yep, we hope with you, and we continue to wish with you that you find your Goodyear,
my Goodyear,
safe and healthy, and that's what we're hoping for. Any final things as it comes to Finch?
I loved the music. There's only a few needle drops. The first is an excellent use of Don McLean's American Pie.
Mm-hmm.
And then a brief little snippet of the Talking Heads' Road to Nowhere. And both of them were just like, yes, I'm in this universe. It immediately connects you to planet Earth. This isn't some like this, a futuristic sci-fi planet. It's just here, but maybe in a more terrible timeline. And I think starting off the movie with those very familiar lyrics from American Pie immediately sort of grounded the picture in a really necessary way, the same way that Guardians incorporated pop music, Guardians of the Galaxy, really well. But yeah, I think, the visuals was great. Acting was fantastic. I thought narratively it was really tight. And I think it just depends if you connect emotionally to a man and his robot, how much enjoyment you're going to get out of this. And I don't know, I guess I'm a sucker for robot man relationships because I really enjoyed it.
On that note, that's a good, nice little transition into our best ever challenge. Speaking of robots or robots, as some people say.
Robots.
Before we get into that, just a quick mention of Sif Pop membership. If you want to be a Sif Pop member, if you enjoy the podcast and the stuff that goes on at the website, it's a fun little place to connect with the Sif Pop community, to have a few fun thank yous that we send your way, including a weekly bonus podcast. If you love this conversation, we pick a topic every week and just do a little conversation on that. The topic, as mentioned earlier, was the last decade of Hanks, kind of how we feel like that stacks up. So if you're curious about that, you can go to patreon.com/sifpop and check it out. You also get your own podcast feed with both the main podcast and the bonus episodes in it, and none of the ads as well. So if you're at a certain level. So check that out at patreon.com/siftpop. All right, we're going to move into the best ever challenge, best ever AI movies. These are movies where an artificial intelligence is, listen, this is going to be one where we all decide how far we want to stretch it. But
this was a really nebulous topic, and there were elements of it that I wanted to take leeway with, and other I'm like, well, this movie includes a robot, but like, I don't know, the central theme about it is not robot related.
Right. So I think pretty much, at least my top 5, the AI is very much a center part of the movie. But let's get into it. We'll go number 5 to number 1. I think I'll kick us off this time. I may get trumped on this. This is one of many people's favorite AI movies, but I have Ex Machina at number 5. So we good to talk about it?
It was in my third honorable mention. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. I think this movie's incredible. I think it's from this will be a common theme with a lot of mine. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Movies that I feel like really nail what AI could be are going to get a leg up. Like if I look at a movie and I go, oh yeah, I can see that 20 years from now or 15 years from now or, whatever. This is one of those movies. The singularity could very much happen in this kind of way. Trying to, as is mentioned in the movie, pass the Turing test, and figure out what that means. And I love the ending of this movie so much because it's so open-ended and yet at the same time so very crystallized. And that's hard to do, to have such a definitive ending that is also that wide open. Is really interesting to me. But great performances, really interesting stuff. Think about it for days. If you haven't seen Ex Machina, check it out. So there you go. John, what do you got at number 5?
I went with a I think is now maybe classic territory, classic action sci-fi, I, Robot from 2004.
Okay.
Love that movie.
Smith. And this is I don't want to say guilty pleasure because I shouldn't feel guilt for it, but I feel like a lot of people might have written this one off as like a kind of a very simplistic kind of disposable action blockbuster, but it has a lot of, I think, really meaty and interesting things to say about sentience and personhood and, what differentiates, humanity from just mindless robots. And I think the action is fantastic. And the world building, the futuristic take on, I want to say New York in like the early 2030s, is really fascinating. This reminds me a lot of Minority Report in the same sort of world building way. This is one of the last great blockbusters from Will Smith. And I really like this one for sure.
Yeah.
No,
and it's good murder mystery too.
don't feel guilty at all
Okay,
for
okay,
loving
good.
iRobot. That it's so good. Alan Tudyk as was his name Sonny? Was that the name of the
Yep.
robot? Yeah,
Yep.
it's so good. And then of course Will Smith. Whenever when did this movie come out? 2004. Okay, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's prime Will Smith. Like, yeah, I love that movie. So don't feel bad at all about it.
Good.
Before we get to Andrew's number 5, I didn't mention the connection of this topic. Obviously, we're doing best ever AI movies in honor of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's performance in Red Notice. Okay, continue.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Andrew, with your number 5.
He is the machine. My number 5, I'll just say this. My top 5, they're all in my top 50 movies of all time. I didn't even make it, like a lot of my honorable mentions are movies that are in my top 100 movies of all time. So it's like, guys, trust me, whenever we talk about them, I do love them. But for number 5, I have Aliens.
Nice.
That James Cameron. Mm-hmm. We have Bishop. Is the tie-in here as the artificial intelligence. Not really a forefront character. That's obviously going to be Ripley. It's one of the very few movies, and maybe that's just a James Cameron thing. The guy knows how to do sequels. He does sequels very, very well. I guarantee you somebody probably has one of his sequels on their lists. No, I think that the way he turned a horror movie into an action movie and it actually works is stellar. I think I like Aliens more than I like Alien.
Yeah, that's not an unpopular view. I agree with that.
Yeah, no, that's not too
and to be fair, I think if I were to include Aliens on this list, it would probably be in my silver medal position. For me, Bishop's role in that film is not particularly central to the plot.
Yeah.
So generally
100%.
I kind of pick movies that aren't necessarily my top 5, but sort of represent the topic a bit stronger. If that makes any sense. And because I feel like some of these movies we talk about a lot, so I didn't pick them.
Sure. Listen, hey, it is up to you to interpret however you like. We try to make it clear that the heart of the best ever challenge is to find the best ever movies that fit the topic. But certainly it makes sense to also fudge towards stuff that really embodies the spirit of the topic as well.
Yeah.
All right. So our number 4s, I guess it's my turn. This is where I have WALL-E at number 4.
Another fantastic film that didn't make my list.
Yeah. It's really brilliant. And again, another one of those AI kind of in a future that I can see being a reality as far as, abandoning the planet and trying to figure out how to live away from here. But yeah, just a spectacular movie. I think there's so much beautiful to say about the entire dialogue-free part of the beginning of this movie and just how compelling it is without much dialogue or English understanding of what's being said. It's a completely realized world. WALL-E is adorable, and just the whole WALL-E Eva thing is great. So
yeah. I think I've made this joke before, but I want to see the script for this movie where it just says WALL-E, WALL-E, Eva, 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 WALL-E, Eva, Eva, WALL-E.
Just for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the transcribed music from Hello Dolly.
Yes.
The only spoken dialogue in the first hour,
which I saw for the first time just a couple months ago.
So did I. It was so good.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, number 4 for you, John.
This might be an unpopular pick, but Bicentennial Man.
Oh, interesting.
I
did not have that on my list.
The 1999 flick with Robin Williams as a metal man constructed by Sam Neill's character. And they call him Bicentennial because he eventually outlives everybody and generations of his family because he's immortal. He's an immortal robot that slowly gains sentience over the decades. And I think this was kind of maligned when it first came out, and it was not one of Robin Williams' more popular or better pictures.
For sure.
But I think looking back on it critically and revisiting it more recently, there's some really strong and effective emotional beats here. And I think the final 30 minutes really touches onto some important stuff, again, about those themes of personhood and what actually qualifies as intelligence, let alone artificial intelligence. And I think this one really gets to the heart of that in an emotional introspective way versus just it doesn't bog down with a lot of the technology or like the robotics of it. It's just this is what does it mean to be a person. And Robin Williams is brilliant as always, even in movies that maybe are not his best.
Nice. Andrew, what's your number
I remember.
4?
I remember liking that movie. It's one of those where I'm sure on a second viewing, I would really appreciate it more. I saw it when it came out.
Yeah, right. I saw it when I was like a young teen, and I was like, this is not.
Yeah.
This is Robin Williams is not funny on this. I don't like it. That was when he started his sort of dramatic arc. Good Will Hunting was probably the first big one, but yeah.
Yeah, it from what I remember, it was a movie that wasn't funny enough for the younger audience, but it also wasn't critical enough to be taken seriously by any, award body. So it was like in that middle area that is very easy for a movie to be forgotten. My number 4 might get trumped. Interstellar.
This is one of my favorites of all time, but same reason I didn't think the AI component of it was sort of central.
Right. Case. Yeah. There's a lot of AI actually in Interstellar. TARS, Case, Plex, and I think there was one more. But yeah. I was just going through. I need to make a list of movies. No matter how many times I watch them, I just bawl.
Yeah.
This would definitely be the one of those movies where every single time I see it, I just cry. Yeah. Oh, that scene where he's watching all of those messages from the past, and then of course meeting his daughter at the end, and oh God, so movie, why are you doing this to me? No, Interstellar.
This was one of those pictures that I saw an early screening of with not a lot of people, and I walked out of there going like, "Is this the greatest movie of the decade?" I think so, but I'm in a vacuum and I have no other opinions, and I need someone to like reel me back in. And the longer I've come away from that movie, the more I'm like, no, I pretty much nailed. At least personally, I feel like my opinion has strengthened over time. Sure, and it really is one of my favorites of the entire decade. It's such a good film.
Nice. Good choice.
I remember my first time watching it. I went and saw it in IMAX, but we were late to the showing, so we had to sit in the very front row in the very far corner. So our necks were like this, watching the big screen. It was very uncomfortable, but I remember loving the movie.
Good.
My memory is it could be flawed, but Gravity came out before Interstellar, correct?
I think that's
Is my timing on that correct?
Yeah. And Gravity was 2013.
If not, we can look that out and find out, because my memory is that I had such an incredible experience with Gravity that it almost downplayed my Interstellar experience. I have fallen in love with that movie, like love with that movie on subsequent watches. My first watch was not,
right, because it's not this like go fast action extravaganza. It's
I liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah,
and I was blown away, obviously, by the intelligence of it and just kind of the intricacy of it. But yeah, I remember really falling in love with it in future watches.
I like how Nolan slowly was pushing the lever to see how far he could go with the complexity of a theme or a story for a movie. First, it was Inception, and pretty much everybody understands.
At first,
Inception.
It was Memento.
That's true. Yeah, Memento's. Yeah,
way back at the beginning of his filmography, he's been toying with time and sort of nonlinear narrative for a while. And I've said it before in my reviews. Nolan, I think, for my money, is the most intelligent director in popular cinema, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Interstellar was almost exactly a year after Gravity, so my memory surprisingly is correct on that.
Well done,
but it happens every once in a while. All right, my number 3 is Her.
Okay, good pick.
I knew it. Well, actually, I thought you were gonna have a little higher.
Man, do I love this movie. I of all the movies I chose, this is the one where I'm like, oh, Spike Jonze went to the future. I get it.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more true every single year.
This one's very prescient for sure.
Oh my goodness. And you could feel it in watching it in that moment, like, oh yeah, this is where we're headed. AI will be our Google Assistant or Siri, or that is going to be where the singularity happens. Absolutely. Like I don't see it happening any other way. And the way it envisioned that world is so perfect. It's just, man, there's quality stuff here. And the fact that the movie is asking all these questions about what that means as a human, what that means is incredible. The Scarlett Johansson performance is astonishing, especially considering she was brought in to do it after the fact and basically had to match her performance to everything that was already existing. Man, just a lot of great stuff here all around. Her is one of my favorite movies ever. So yeah, I dig it.
Nice to hear some nice praise for that.
John, what do you got at your number 3?
Again, I don't know that this would be the best example. I'm breaking my own rule I already set, but I'm going with Metropolis from 1927 because I don't feel like we get to talk about 90-year-old films that often on the show. And this is one of my all-time favorite silent pictures. It is top to bottom a brilliant world building. Technically, it holds up really well. Like this movie visually.
I agree. I saw it for the first time this year.
Metropolis does things with model works and forced perspective and all sorts of optical trickery that still look fantastic almost a full century later. And there is a robot, an artificial intelligence, I think just called like Human Machine in the script, that is sort of the precursor to C-3PO and other android-looking robots. But if you have not seen a good silent film, or if you don't know how to get into that genre because it is maybe not as accessible as newer stuff on Netflix, Metropolis is one of those movies you could show it to anybody today. I'm like, yeah, no, this is exceptional. This is a very entertaining, modern, forward-thinking narrative that flies by in 2.5 hours. And it's just such a powerful experience to see cinema from that era executed that well. And it has these themes of like the future and robotics and AI and flying cars and all these things that are just like, yeah, no, you guys were coming up with this stuff before a lot of people were writing about it. So Metropolis is a big favorite of mine.
It's also a fascinating research on, a movie that has been lost and found and re-edited and try to find the artist's original intent. And there's some really fascinating stuff on that. In just a quick perusal of a little bit of quick Googling, I had remembered that for a long, long time, basically only 75% of the movie existed to watch. Like
that is correct.
And it's July of 2008, they actually found the rest of the movie. So it's only been the last, just over a decade that the entirety of the movie has even been available to watch. So stuff like that always fascinates me. So yeah, Fritz Lang was, way ahead of his time.
Big time. Big time.
Insanely so. Yeah, so there you go. Metropolis, good stuff. All right, Andrew, what's your number 3?
Avengers Infinity War.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
You should, because that's what Vision is.
Yeah, no, that's a really good pick. That's a really good pick.
Yeah,
sure.
What can be said about Infinity War that hasn't been said a trillion times on the show? So,
yeah,
okay,
no, that's fair.
We literally have already.
We've covered it. It's been covered. All right, let's move on to our number 2s. This is where I have the Iron Giant at number 2.
This is a much bigger category than I originally thought when you posed the question to us there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of excellent films in this.
Speaking of movies, no matter how many times I see, I cry.
Yeah.
Superman.
It's so good. Vin Diesel's best performance. This is incredible stuff. Another one we've talked about plenty of times. Not a lot new to add other than, again, to say, if you're just waiting on seeing this for some reason, move it. Just bump it up a few slots.
I only saw it for the first time this year. And I wish I saw it as a little kid because I would have loved it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it hits as strong as a 35-year-old, but as a 5-year-old or even like a 6 or 7 year, I would have loved this for sure. And I still do really, really like it, but I definitely regret having not seen it as a kid.
Yeah, when this came out, I was 23. So, I was adult when this came out, but I just remember just absolutely being in love with there are certain things that hand-drawn animation can do that are really beautiful and maybe a bit nostalgic for me as well. And this does all those things so well. And the characters are great. The acting is great. So, and beyond all of that, just the themes of love, sacrifice, what that means, and why that is, what it means to be human is really
Yeah, no,
good
it has,
stuff. So,
especially, I don't want to say it's a kid's movie, but for a movie that's maybe aimed at younger audiences, it has an exceptionally mature theme and story about it. And one of the last great hand-drawn movies, with the exception of movies that like deliberately try to do that,
right.
After the advent of CG. But
Yeah.
this is when Disney was sort of falling off a bit post-Renaissance, and Iron Giant is what, a Universal property, I think.
I'm not even sure.
They came in with this, and it's.
I mean, I know it's been in the Warner stuff. Like
Maybe
it was in
Warner,
Space Jam, and it
That's
was
right,
in.
that's right. You got to just think about theme
Ready
park
Player
rides, like,
One.
who
Ready
has the
Player
theme
One.
park ride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, number 2, John. What's your number 2?
I'm going to go with the one that's a poster behind me here, which is Forbidden Planet.
Oh, nice.
It's a sci-fi picture from 1956. I might have talked about it on the show before. It is it's basically a 2-hour episode of Star Trek, a decade before Star Trek existed.
Nice.
And Robbie the robot, who features prominently on the poster there, is one of the first great, I think, like android assistants in cinema. That you can draw a through line from Robbie the robot straight to Data or to C-3PO or all these other sort of like helpful little sidekicks that are just there to help the protagonists, but in a way that reminds me of Johnny Five or Jeff. And if you love a good episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Forbidden Planet is a perfect film. And I love it.
Well, I know you sold me with that single statement right there. So
yeah,
nice. Andrew, what do you got at number 2?
it's going to get Trump at The Matrix.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, on to our number ones.
real quick,
The Matrix.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I have The Matrix at number 1. Andrew has it at number 2. John, did you have it on your list?
I didn't. I don't know. Every movie you've mentioned, Andrew, is higher rated than every movie I've mentioned. But I have just deliberately, I'm like, I don't want to talk about The Matrix again. I mean, yes, that's like one of the best movies ever, and it has AI in it. But like, I want to talk about Robbie the robot. We don't get enough Robbie on it.
The Matrix, because I tried to be pretty strict about, like, because there are so many of them and so many good ones, I tried to make sure all of mine were where like the AI was.
It's
a
pure AI
I don't
movie.
disagree. I deliberately broke the rules because I didn't want to keep talking about The Matrix.
That's fair. Hey, listen, everybody's list is
Surprisingly,
their own.
though, I think that there's such a high caliber, plethoristic, I guess, list of AI
That's a fun new
movies.
word.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like every movie you've mentioned, Andrew, I've rated a 10 out of 10. They're all like absolute classic films.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I love The Matrix. And
Aaron,
it has
you had
AI. It
number one.
qualifies. It would be at the top of my list probably.
The only thing, there's again not a lot left to say about The Matrix that hasn't already been said, other than boy, oh boy, here it comes, right? Like, we are on the precipice right now as we are recording this of
The fourth one.
seeing another Matrix movie in the next month or so.
So wild.
And that's really exciting because then questions, like, does it make the second and third film better? Does it build the world out in an interesting way? Is it just a rehash of the first one? Like, we're looking forward to those questions in really interesting ways. And also, does it bring in a new generation? Does a new generation see the new one and go, oh, now I want to see this one that came out, in
1999.
Which both my top 2 were both 99 movies. Man, that year was something else. But
It's crazy.
So anyhow, Matrix in at my number 1. Andrew, did you have anything to add?
I will say it's not The Matrix per se, but for as much as the sequels get ragged on, I can look at both of the sequels and find things that are actually incredibly, astounding. I think that the freeway scene in the second movie is like possibly one of the best scenes in the entire trilogy. You You told me never to go on the freeway. Let's pray I was wrong. And that one little dynamic of them going back and forth just gets you so hyped. Like, what am I about to see?
Yeah.
And then the movie
the
delivers.
The Matrix sequels suffer from the same thing a lot of follow-ups to masterpieces do, which is there's no way you can re-achieve that lightning in a bottle. So every comparison is going to be a negative one. I think on their own, if they were somehow able to exist without that sort of setup, these are really well-regarded movies. But because they're in the shadow of the first one, everyone's like, yeah, but there's always that like sort of intro to every conversation. It's like, yeah, they're not the first Matrix. It's like,
I will be watching them. I will be watching them again here shortly, leading up to the movie, and it has been a while since I've seen the sequels. But
I went back and rewatched a couple years ago, and they're all excellent. They're all very good films.
My memory is that they aren't. My memory is that they are really messy. Those sequels, like that, there's a lot of like muddledness to them. But I'll have to. I will have to watch them again because you've had a more recent watch than me, and I may. But as far as a spectacle goes, I remember them being absolutely incredible. Like you mentioned that highway scene and stuff. I just remember on a story level, just feeling like, oh, you really don't. You're either trying to do too much or you don't know what you're trying to do because it just felt.
Really 100%. It felt like the sequels trying to, because there was a really interesting theological message in the first Matrix movie, and I think that the sequels tried to get too. They just came out too pretentious with the message they were trying to get across, a forced pretentiousness, and they're a little preachy. It didn't. Yeah, they're a little preachy. Yeah. But at the same time, like both of you have said, the spectacle of them, like the fall of Zion, is like
the action, the world building, the set pieces, it's all great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah,
John, what do you got at number 1?
Terminator 2.
Yeah. Just barely missed my list.
I knew that was going to be on somebody's list. Good call.
We don't need to even talk about it. It's just, we all know.
Yeah. Andrew, you're number 1.
Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back.
Again, every movie you picked, Andrew, is like within my top 13.
It's clear, Andrew. You went a little looser, and that's great. But I. Because the AI in Star Wars is not the point of Star Wars. It's just not. Like, there are AI characters in it, but
that's not what you said. You said movies that feature artificial intelligence.
Right. I guess it's all in the definition of feature. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Nobody's begrudging you your list.
No, okay.
As a matter of clarification, obviously one of the Star Wars movies would have been on both of our lists. We just, kind of focused more in on movies that were, where the AI was central and featured.
Going off of your guys' list, there's movies in my honorable mention coming up that definitely would have fit it's all about artificial intelligence.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you got there? Totally. Because that's, I think, a more interesting conversation.
Yeah, let's head into the honorable mentions. We've talked about Star Wars many times, obviously. So let's talk about like the honorable mentions. What are some of the other ones that you didn't put on your list?
Tron Legacy.
Yeah. I agree. That's a great example. Yeah.
That movie, and not hyperbolic, genuinely believe I think Tron Legacy has the best soundtrack of any movie ever. Mm-hmm. Like, it's perfect. Oh, it's so good. 2001 Space Odyssey.
Sure. Yep.
What are you doing? I can't let you back in, Dave. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Minority Report.
Sorry,
it's not really featured. Yeah, it's not really featured. Minority Report, but it's one of those near future.
Yeah, I love Minority Report.
I do too.
I thought about it originally because I was thinking like the precog is a form of AI. But is it?
No, they're not. They're people.
They're people, right?
Yeah, they're people.
Yeah. So I eventually decided not to.
Yeah.
But
Blade Runner 2049, not the first one. Because
agree. Agree.
Do you guys remember Moon?
Yes, I had Moon in my honorable mentions. Absolutely, I had Moon in my honorable mentions.
I got to rewatch that. I remember really liking it, but that was
so good.
13 years ago.
Yeah, that's one that's
Yeah.
under radar for a lot of people. Hear it from all three of us. See Moon.
Yeah.
It is worth a watch for sure. Very
Another one
interesting
of those,
stuff
what do
going
you
on
call
there.
it, a one-hander? Movies with like just one
Yeah.
person?
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Almost
look it
Sam
up because
Rockwell.
I remember the
It's
the
2010,
budget for
somewhere
that
around
movie.
there.
The budget
Yeah.
for that movie was insanely cheap.
Hundreds of thousands. They did it really cheap. David
Yeah.
Bowie's kid made that, Duncan Jones.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
Duncan
right.
Jones
Duncan
did that
Jones.
one.
Yeah.
Some movies that we haven't talked about yet, because I agree. Yeah, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Wall-E, Ex Machina, Interstellar. We haven't talked about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with Marvin the
Sure.
Paranoid Android,
Sure.
who is a delightful little sidekick character. That's one of my favorite stories from Douglas Adams. The book, the miniseries, the radio show, and then the Hollywood remake in 2005. All versions, I've listened to most, are really excellent. And Marvin is not like an important character, but he's just a fun little side piece to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Hitchhikers. So good. I also would mention the recent Free Guy. Speaking of Ryan Reynolds, that's an
It's
AI
a fun
central
movie.
character.
And I've name dropped Johnny Five a bunch, but Short Circuit obviously qualifies as well. That's super fun 80s comedy.
Big Hero 6 is another one I love with Baymax.
I actually forgot about that one, but that's really
It's a very popular genre in Hollywood. It seems like putting robots that like learn humanity is a big thing.
And then if you really want to stretch the category, I'd throw Wizard of Oz in there
Tin Man
as well, because you got.
I didn't even think about this, but Data from Star Trek counts. And if we're only talking movies, I could throw in First Contact.
Yeah,
which is an excellent film with Data, and like the whole half the movie is about him and his emotions and stuff. So
there you go.
I love First Contact.
All right, let's move on to our buried treasure. What is that one thing in pop culture that you want to make sure everybody knows about? I think I'll kick us off. I finally got around to seeing Little Shop of Horrors in its entirety. I was not ready for how much I liked this movie.
Okay.
I think I was prepared for, I knew what I was in store for. I've seen scenes in, is like on a weirdness quotient, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for just how much this movie goes there, like was willing to take the satire and really just go for it.
I got to rewatch it. It's been 20 years or more.
It's
since I've
really
seen
good.
It is. I do remember loving
really
it. Really
good.
The
music is fun. The music is good. Like I also recently rewatched Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I know the two kind of get confused sometimes in thought of as similar. I think they're very different movies. I'm not as big of a Rocky Horror fan. I think I understand the cult status of it. I get that. The music beyond the first act of Rocky Horror is not all that great, and that movie kind of just stretches on forever. But
maybe it's just me, but I'd rather watch Rick Moranis like any day of the week in any project.
He's so good in this. Everybody around him is good. The movie, Steve Martin comes in and just chews the walls apart. Like he's so good.
I genuinely can't think of a Steve Martin performance where he's not just like chewing scenery. Maybe in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he's a little more subdued.
Sure, there.
But yeah, in Little Shop of Horrors, he is like well over 11 in terms of.
You got Rick Moranis, John Belushi, Steve Martin, Bill Murray, and and it's a Frank Oz movie. I mean, what more do you need?
Yeah, I listen. I just
animatronic puppets.
Well, I wanted to talk about that too. Not just animatronic puppets. The most incredible animatronic puppets I've ever seen.
It's pretty good.
It blew. I was like, wait, did they redo this? Is this CG? Like the lip movement, and this movie kind of blew my mind, and I wasn't ready for that. So if you've never seen Little Shop of Horrors, give it a chance. I probably oversold it at this point. I just know I was not expecting it to be this great, and it really is really great. So yeah. Little Shop of Horrors is my buried treasure.
I definitely got to revisit that one.
Yep.
For sure.
Let's see. Andrew, what do you got?
Well, Aaron, as you know, I'm going through the years of my life and knocking off movies on my list of shame, so we're going to go all the way back to the year 1993. Unfortunately, the Black Hawk Down attacks of Somalia happened. The World Trade Center was bombed for the first time. The Waco commune was burned to the ground. I turned 7, and a little ditty of a film was released called Philadelphia, starring Denzel Washington.
I wanted to guess Philadelphia.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Especially since we were watching, because that is the type of movie you would not have seen at 7.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that until recently as well. But yeah, what did you think about it?
Yeah.
Loved it. I really did love it. It's an astounding movie. I think the theme for this week is Tom Hanks movies where nothing but good things happen to him. So that's that's how I felt about this one. It's so good. I mean, aside from Tom Hanks' performance and Denzel, you know those two titans are going to come in and they're going to deliver. I loved how genuine and realistic the courtroom like sequences felt. I don't know how I really feel about, we're getting snippets day by day. It's not like a court. It's not your classic courtroom film where, you got prolonged scenes in the courtroom with a lot of back and forth with the cross-examination and everything. It's more like hey, we're going to have one witness on stand. They're going to give a quick testimony. Then we're going to cut to like Denzel Washington in a food market. And then we're going to come back to the courtroom like a week later, and we're going to see, somebody else on the witness stand. And then
I think it's for that sort of disparate editing that people kind of disqualify it as like a good legal film. But there's a lot of, that's like the heart of the story. It's what it's based on. And it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, powerful is an understatement. It was such a good movie. I think I'm okay with having waited this long to see it because I feel now I can appreciate it a lot more. Sure. It's definitely ahead of its time, for when this movie came out, in 93, to have such a proponent film for the gay community and for what was going on with AIDS and HIV and stuff. I mean 93, like this country was still reeling from the AIDS crisis of the 80s, and being sympathetic towards LGBTQ was still not popular. I mean, famously, I think Obama was the first president to really openly be like, yeah, gay people are okay, and that was 15 years later. Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly public opinion has changed on that topic. But 1993, a lot of us were still kind of bigoted, to put it frankly.
I'm not going to try and put a good face on and say that I've always been the best friend to the LGBTQ community, but I'm doing my best to make up for it. So
that counts for a lot, though. Being willing to change counts for a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great film. So.
There you go.
John!
And one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs, Streets of Philadelphia. Just a beautiful ballad.
It is. It opens and closes with a City of Brotherly Love. Yeah.
Gorgeous film.
John, what do you got? What's your buried treasure?
This was really hard for me. I'm not going to lie. I've been watching horror movies all of October. None of them I would qualify as like a buried treasure everyone needs to go see. And the one movie I really loved, Hereditary, everyone already has seen. So I struggle to come up with something that maybe you guys haven't heard about or people haven't looked at. And this month, after horror movies in October, I wanted to start watching a bunch of Westerns and knock off elements from that list of shame. And a movie I watched this week, Johnny Guitar, directed by Nicholas Ray, came out in 1954, is a really modern and progressive Western that did not feel like an old Technicolor 50s Western. This movie has progressive female characters who take charge and are stronger than their male counterparts. It has, I almost want to say like a European style narrative that is very, it's more like emotion-based, and it's not just based on like the tough cowboy has to stand up to the bad people. There's definitely more of a emotional and thematic underpinning to this entire thing, especially the ending, which feels so modern and un-American. Like this, I don't want to say it's an anti-Western, but I was so taken aback by like, wow, this does not feel like a 50s John Wayne Western. John Wayne's not in it, but I was expecting like, just classic, shooting on horseback with like bad projection screen behind them. And this movie's more about like reconnecting with like a long lost love and like trying to find your purpose despite opposition. And then like a fun shootout at the end that does not end the way you expect it to. And one of those sort of almost like Francis Truffaut style endings where you're not really sure how you're supposed to feel about it. Johnny Guitar would get a big recommend from me. It was unexpected amongst a sea of very predictable Westerns.
You know what? I have not seen it, so I just put it on my list.
I don't think a lot of people have. It does not have a ton. No. It does not have a ton of ratings on Letterboxd, but the ones that it does have are all 9s and 10s. It's in the top 500 on my big list of great films list that I put together a couple years back. So it's solid. It's a really, really good picture.
Nice. And it's got everybody's favorite mommy dearest, Joan Crawford, in it.
There you go. Yeah. That is Johnny Guitar, which is on Prime, Hulu, and Paramount Plus. You can find that in several places. So Johnny Guitar, Philadelphia is on Prime, and Little Shop of Horrors is on HBO Max.
Nice.
If you want to check any of those out.
Ernest Borgnine.
What's that? early Ernest Borgnine in that film.
Okay, then.
Nice.
Before he won the Oscar for Marty, I think.
We did a podcast.
Yeah, we did.
We have accomplished all of our goals today, and it was touch
all
and go there.
All 3 heists completed.
That's right. All our eggs are in one basket. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you to Drew for putting together visuals for the show.
Yeah, buddy.
And thank you to John Paula for hanging out with us again. John, what would you like to promote? What would you like to tell people about? They can find you.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, before we recorded, Aaron, I have embarrassingly not uploaded to YouTube in 23 months. So let's send the folks this week over to my Letterboxd channel. I'm still reviewing films quite often and watching at least a film every single day. And I have not skipped a day since the start of the pandemic. I am both proud and ashamed of that. So follow my progress and find out when I finally miss a day.
Live your dream.
Letterboxd.com/John Paula.
Very nice. You really started that as almost a YouTube's anonymous meeting. Like it has been 23 months since my last YouTube upload.
Hi, I'm John Paula.
Hi, John.
My name is John.
23 months since I've uploaded.
Yeah, exactly. But we're glad to have you on.
In full honesty, though, I don't know that the addiction is YouTube itself or being away from YouTube. Because I enjoy both for different reasons. Being away from the platform, I think, is probably better for my health. So fair enough for sure.
You can check out John there. If you want to check out more things Sif Pop, you can do that at sifpop.com. You can also support what goes on at Sif Pop through Patreon, patreon.com/siftpop. Support starts at $3 a month. Different levels, you get access to all the bonus episodes. We record one of those every week, as well as some ad-free versions and some different things as well. There's also lots of ways to connect with us. You can leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can also email us. We still do that. feedback@sifpop.com if you've got something you want to say. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier than winning a game of rock Jenga. We will be back next week. Probably with King Richard and The Harder They Fall are the two we're looking at doing next week. So we will catch you then. Bye.
Bye.
It's so funny because the what is it? Smartless podcast, which I've started listening to recently. I didn't think I was able to, but actually it is on all podcast platforms. They end every episode with that "bye," like that kind of thing or whatever. And I'm like, we've done that so many times.
I'm not going to take credit for that.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's been around forever, but it just made me go like, oh, well, hey, there you go. It's just like a common thing.
I don't have any original ideas anymore. I use them up in my 20s.
That's right. We are all just red noticing our way through life. Yes. Appreciate you guys hanging out, watching the video. Chris, Right 96D, Mark, I see in there as well. Nicholas stopped by to say hey. Really do appreciate you guys. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next week.